Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Touhou Luna Nights. In the last part we adventured through a majority of the chaotic space here fighting Cherno, a boss who was added after the game's release in the process. And now it's time for us to go finish off the extra stage and thus the game in general. Again, the only thing I'm not really showing off is boss rush mode, if only because it's literally the same bosses, and to my memory you don't actively get anything for clearing it. I guess theoretically I could have shown off the room, but I can probably do that during the credits with a little post-script edit just to be like, hey, yeah, this is what this looks like. So this room here is the main reason I actively went back to Stage 3 again at the end of last time to save and restore my health. We got a gigantic horizontal hallway here, filled to the brim with those Raijin enemies, the Tanukis, the dragons that bounce all over the place like the bone dragons from Symphony of the Night. There's a lot of damage potential here, and while the bounce blade can go a long way here, this is also where the enemies that have the cameras are probably at their most annoying. The worst thing overall here is that if you're not careful, it's super easy to run out of MP here, and there's no real way around that in a lot of cases without just taking the room much more slowly than I am. But I gotta get a move on. I got things to do. I got a game to finish. With that said, this is far and away the best place in the game to grind for not only experience, but also probably some of the rarest gems. And not for nothing, I did actively consider doing some grinding here for gems and experience after I hit the upcoming checkpoint. But I ultimately decided against that because you don't really need to. I'm already at what I would say is the recommended level for the boss fight coming up here, but if you're super cautious and want to make sure you're just as ready as you can, level 25 is probably a good, like, upper limit to be at. You could theoretically also just go grind gems, sell them to Nitori for a lot of things, and then just buy a bunch of experience to help with that, but not my deal. If anything, I would actually recommend more getting some HP recoveries just in case, because, well, the boss fight here really, really goddamn hurts whenever it hits you. Other things to keep in mind is that pretty much any sub-weapon is going to be pretty good for what's coming up here. I'd personally recommend the 1000 Dagger, if you can get behind the boss at certain points, the chainsaw, because as usual, that's just a ridiculously good sub-weapon. And the bound knife we got last time is also spectacularly good, especially if you lay 3 of them on top of each other in time stop, because it's just guaranteed to get at least 2 or 3 hits in while you can take that moment to dodge around other attacks. Oh yeah, that's right, I completely forgot to mention that last time. So similar to the rubble that certain attacks from bosses can cause, like the electric boulders with Patchouli or the crumbling icicle with Cherno, when the bound knives are done bouncing around and just falling to the floor before they disappear, they still do actively count as a hitbox. And if there's some cases where that can actually do a lot of extra damage for you along the way, especially if you stack them the same way since they'll bounce pretty identically. With that said, time for what's ultimately the final boss of the game. 99% of the map, let's finish it off with 100%. Reimu? So you were the intruder? Hey, who are you calling intruder? You people are the cause of all of this. What do you mean? Your copy of Gensokyo has been affecting the real Gensokyo. And because of your copy of Hakurei's shrine here, there's been nothing but disasters. My barrier is completely useless now, thanks to you. But even so, coming all this way to destroy this world. Lady Remelia planned to return this world to normal once she was done with it. There's just been a few setbacks. See what I mean? This is what happens when you guys are left in charge. I'm certain this is not what Lady Remelia expected either. Could you give us just a moment? I'll find the source of the problem and put things right again. No can do. This world must be destroyed now. Then I'm gonna go smack Remelia and make her think about what she's done. I don't think she's going to listen to reason. Fine, I just have to make her see things my way. True final boss of the game, sort of, is Reimu Hakurei. Attack-wise for me, she usually tends to start by dashing right at you before using her Purification Rod as a whip, like it's right out of the Belmont's book of tricks. Future dashes, I believe, are usually marked by her having like 5 or 6 yin-yang symbols spawn around her with the bell sound effect. Notably, she can also swing her Purification Rod, which I think are also called Goheis, downward directly at you from a jump, though that's honestly probably her rarest attack and one of the easiest to dodge. She can pause her movement for a moment and actively punch the ground. What she's doing there is sending her Gohei through the floor to attack you from below after a moment. Best way to dodge that is to actively just keep moving, but keep a time slow ready for that, because that's one of the best ways to gain some HP or MP during this fight, depending on whether or not you need one or either resource. She can fire spell tags directly at you as a projectile, which can just be outright destroyed, but she can also jump and rain them down from above you. Especially during the latter form of that, it's worth noting the spell tags, if they touch you, will freeze you like that one attack of Cherno's did. With that said, as long as you keep a time slow or a time stop ready, that's usually pretty easy to get around. She can fire homing fireballs at you, and as long as you stand behind her, the homing will never be able to actually pick up into you. This is actually one of the best places to use the Thousand Daggers sub-weapon in the game, as she's just so open from behind. You're still standing? I haven't even started. Her pinch attack here can be a tad overwhelming, though. It's 2 bunches of fireballs raining down from the sky. These start far away from her in either direction before slowly approaching her in the center. This is best dodged by approaching her with the dash bite to outrun the pace of the falling fireballs. And then when you get right about where she is, jumping and then hovering over her for a moment until the fireballs stop raining, as over her is a directly safe space. From there, the pattern loops. I do believe both phases of her, because there are 2 phases here, use attacks in effectively the same pattern, with the only randomness potentially being which version of an attack it might use in the moment. This is a fight you need to be pretty reactive to, but honestly, I find both phases here to be a much more fun final boss than Nitori into Flandre. Not that that's a bad fight, I just think this is much more thrilling. This fight keeps you on your toes, and honestly, Reimu is probably one of the biggest cases of what I brought up earlier in the game, where even if the fight isn't inherently that long, it feels so much longer when you're actively playing it because of how much is going on and how you process that information. You kind of enter that little like time dilation state in your head where things just kind of slow down. With that said, phase 1 here, perfectly doable if you got good stealth weapon usage and understand the patterns quick enough. You're pretty good. You really think you can stop me, huh? I guess I should take this fight seriously then. Reimu, will you really destroy this world no matter what it takes? Absolutely. There's no use in trying to stop me. Well then, I suppose I should get serious too. Oh, and here I thought you were already serious. Don't underestimate me. This is where the real fun begins. Phase 2 is projectile central in every sense of what that word could potentially mean. She starts and eventually loops in her pattern by spawning in a shitload of spell tags as well as 2 bouncing yin and yang symbols. You can graze or destroy the tags, but be warned, so can the yin yangs. Every tag destroyed spawns in a red projectile that homes in on your location at the moment of spawning, so keep moving to avoid them. Bound Knife is really good for this attack and phase in general, but since she's airborne again, so is the Chainsaw, which you'll see me swapping between those a lot. She can generate little portals that'll fire fireballs out of them into other portals. From there's a couple different patterns that can go at. It can either swipe across the screen like that. They can start on either far side of the screen and slowly approach you, at which point you just have to jump over it. Pretty good for grazing too. And I think they can also just approach you, period. Like this. Jumping and hovering is the best way to get around that. Probably the hardest attack to get a read on is her Gohei attack, where 2 giant Goheis swing across the screen. There's an audio cue for it. I'm terrible at picking it up. The best place to dodge that is by ducking in the middle of the screen, but be warned, the Goheis themselves, I think it's like 8 to 10 green aura yin-yang symbols, which will move to your location that you were at when they spawned in upon pressing the time stop button. So get out of the middle immediately if you can after that. She'll spawn in a giant pattern of the spell tags you saw in the previous phase, which will then fall to the ground. Getting touched by a lot of those will keep you stunned for a good while, and it's pretty easy to do that. With that said, Bound Knife is pretty good in this fight for that reason as well. After that, she tends to just rain lightning down from either lantern, I think it's both lanterns even on either side of her sprite, and move around the stage a little bit. Just stay in the middle below her, and you can dodge that pretty easily. The only attack we haven't talked about yet is her pinch attack, and she doesn't tend to use it until, I believe, I think below like 5,000, 4,000 HP. I've heard that is actively distinctly based on the value of the HP and not like a percentage of their HP. With that said, that also means if you're quick enough, you can potentially avoid a lot of bosses using their pinch attacks in general, since I think they're also meant to use them at specific points in their pattern. Similarly to the Flandre fight, my 2 biggest pieces of advice for this fight in the long haul is A, never underestimate how useful it can be to slow down time rather than outright stop it against certain attacks. And B, never underestimate just how much HP or MP you can gain back with a proper graze. As, especially on my first playthrough, I was more actively trying to avoid attacks rather than graze off of them, and that made things actively quite a bit more nightmarish depending on which phase I was on or what attacks I was dodging. Similarly to Flandre, this is a fight that both feels long and actively is long because Reimu in phase 2 here does have a lot of health to deal with. For right now though, let's talk about her final attack. this giant array of yin-yang symbols in Magatama. The inner circle will fire projectiles out of them that are colored the color of a lot of the auras, but don't actually affect the world like those. You need to dodge past the projectiles by slowing down or pausing time as the bullets get interrupted by the smaller yin-yang symbols to avoid damage, though worth noting, Reimu herself is very open to damage during this attack. And honestly, from there, the fight just loops. It's the one boss fight that doesn't even have dialogue, I believe, for entering its pinch phase, which is actively pretty rare. Not for nothing, something I really do like about this game is that you really do have to learn and understand the attack patterns closer to, say, like a Mega Man game than your average Metroidvania-adjacent title. As in a lot of those, not for nothing, unless you're severely underleveled or doing a challenge run, you can really just face tank a lot of damage from bosses as long as you're outpacing their damage, and it's never really a threat. In this, you're guaranteed to take a lot of damage at any given hit, even at higher levels, so you actively do need to learn the fight. In that regard, it's a lot like Metroid Dread and Samus Returns, which, for all of their individual issues, I think both games have incredible actual boss fights. Albeit in the case of Samus Returns, 40 of them are Metroids, and, yeah, that's a Metroid 2 issue to begin with. I'll get to both of those games at some point. I actively had plans to, but then other games came out that I wanted to do first, like Prime Remastered, and really it's just a never-ending trend of getting distracted by other games along my LP list and all that jazz. Enough attrition, enough potential extra leveling in the case you need to in the prior hallway, though, and Reimu, while she's easily the most dangerous boss fight in the game for how many attacks she can throw out so quickly, will fall just like the rest. Impossible! Well, not bad. But your powers should be sealed in this world. How are you even able to fight me? What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And this space Lady Remelia created has made me stronger. Even stronger than you, Reimu. Lady Remelia! And what's this? There are two Nitoris? That isn't me. It's someone pretending to be me. I see. You must be Flandre, then. The mistress's sister? It can't be. You got me. Though I can't believe you never figured it out, Sakuya. You're so gullible. Flandre, why were you impersonating Nitori? It's all your fault, out here having fun all by yourselves. You never even invite me. You, my sister, even Pahse. I hate all of you. You have it all wrong, Flandre. Huh? How so? Remelia created Lunanites as a world of illusion just for you. Just for me? I'm sorry for keeping it a secret, Flandre. Mistress, what exactly do you mean? Flandre, you're just so strong. And stuck in the Scarlet Devil Mansion, you can't really let it all out, right? That's why Pahse and I created a world just like Gensokyo for you to use all your powers in. That's why we created Lunanites. By the way, Patchouli asked for my help in designing Lunanites. But we never imagined you would come here pretending to be me. So that's what it was all about? Hold on. You all may be fine with things, but what about me? There's still strange things happening in the real Hakurei Shrine. Yeah, sorry about that. Spirit stuff like that isn't really my thing, so I hadn't even considered it. Oh, come on! Oh dear, what could that mean? Looks like this space has reached its limit. What does that mean? Since you two went all out in your fight, all that energy is built up in this world. This is an irregular space that was not in the original plan. So it's not very stable. We should probably get out of here. Lady Remelia, Nitori, my powers are sealed in this world. This means I can't fly. Well, when in doubt, take the leftover robot. Guess I'll have to ride in this. that's Touhou Luna Nights in its entirety, barring the boss rush mode. One thing I want to talk about before I actively talk about my overall thoughts on the game, worth noting, and I'll probably see if I can get some extra footage of this between now and the post-script editing. You actively are in control of Nitori's robot here. It can fire the guns to destroy the credits, a la Smash Brothers. I just never remember to do it because I just want to enjoy the ending. Luna Nights is a very solid game that I think is best played when you don't look at it as a Metroid-like. When you try to play it like a Metroidvania, going to earlier levels to get power-ups again and all that, the level design kind of falls apart because it's very much meant to be played either in the early access linear stage style, or by only looking at stages as an individual entity rather than as part of a distinct whole of a castle like it would be in your average Metroidvania. The combat mechanics are really good, and I love the boss fights here. Some of them go on a little long, but at least they have interesting attack patterns that constantly keep me on my feet, so it never really feels boring. But it definitely is a game that is of two distinct halves, because its navigation and movement feels best in combat, but you only really get to good combat at the end of a given stage, which isn't exactly an issue unique to this. I'd say a lot of Metroidvanias have that issue. That's actually why I didn't really mind Dread or Samus Returns. Leaning into Samus doing more, like, action stuff during boss fights at the least, because at least it made those feel more like a set piece here, like they do very much in Luna Nights. As for Touhou itself, we're probably going to see it again on the channel at some point, albeit it probably will be once again limited to one of the side things, as I don't see myself doing one of the top-down shoot-'em-up bullet hell games anytime soon. If anything, I'm more likely to do a redo of my Touhouvania LP from 14 some odd years ago, just about, or maybe finally do Touhouvania 2, if only because I find those games more interesting to talk about in terms of how the mechanics feel. Worth noting, and I forget if I've talked about this part of this outright, in order to access the boss rush mode I've talked offhandedly about in the past several parts, you do need to beat Reimu as you unlock it for your save file after beating this fight, hence why the text shows up right about now. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, have a great night, take care, and I'll see you guys next Let's Play, whatever that may be. See you guys then.